Bismillah, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, wassalatu wassalam ala Rasulil Kareem wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man tabi'a sunnatahu ila middin. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome again to another episode of your weekly Islamic chat show coming to you from Sharjah TV, Guest of the Week. I'm your host Ismail Bullock, and today inshallah we have another episode relating to the Hajj pilgrimage, and inshallah in this episode we'll talk a bit more about the rulings and the practices and the rituals and procedures, how they should be performed, and inshallah we'll do our best as well to link them in to how they were performed or how they started by the Prophet Ibrahim, peace be upon him. And to do this with me is brother Muhammad Tim Humble. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
As I mentioned, we want to talk today a bit more about the Hajj pilgrimage itself. I guess we could start off by basically highlighting the importance. I mean, we know that there are 5 pillars in Islam, and we know that the 5th pillar is to perform the Hajj if you can physically and financially afford to do so. So I guess we could start off by emphasizing generally the importance of Hajj and its status in Islam.
Okay, Bismillah, walhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalam ala Rasulillah, wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala. Amma ba'd, there's no doubt whatsoever of the importance of the Hajj. And we know that the Hajj is one of the pillars of Islam. And the pillars of Islam are the most important outward actions that a Muslim can do. And we know that Allah Azza wa Jal said, وَلِلَّهِ عَلَى النَّاسِ حِجُّ الْبَيْتِ. And for Allah, as an obligation for the people to do, is that they have to perform Hajj to the sacred house. مَنِ اسْتَطَاعَ إِلَيْهِ سَبِيلًا. Whoever is able to do so, able to reach it, or able to achieve it. So Hajj is something very, very important indeed, and it's a pillar from the 5 pillars of Islam, and something people should take seriously. Now, that's actually an interesting point, because it's something that maybe people don't take as seriously as they should. A lot of people delay Hajj beyond the point where they're able to do it. So when I go to Hajj as a guide, a religious guide, we see a lot of people coming to Hajj who are older, a lot of people who are sometimes quite ill because they're quite elderly. And yes, some of those people maybe couldn't afford to go to Hajj until that time. But a lot of them, if you ask them, they could have afforded at 30, at 35, at 40, at 45, at 50, at 55, at 60, at 65. But instead we see them at 75, 80, 85 going for their Hajj. Because a lot of people have this idea that, I'll delay it till the end of my life, and that means that I will, I can get my forgiveness. وَالْحَجُّ الْمَبْرُورُ لَيْسَ لَهُ جَزَاءٌ إِلَّا الْجَنَّةِ. The accepted Hajj has no reward for it except paradise, and they want that towards the end of their life. But it's very important to know that Hajj is an obligation as soon as you are able to do it. From the moment that you're financially able and the moment you're able to get a visa, then it is obligatory for you to be able to go to the Hajj. So that's a really important point, that people don't delay it and don't take it as something that, I'll do later on. And yes, if Allah Azza wa Jal gives you a long life, there's no reason why you can't repeat it again at an older age. But as soon as you're able financially and physically and in terms of administration and paperwork to go to the Hajj, then that is what you must do.
So, I mean, with regards to the Hajj, I mean, it's a very long process in theory, but we want to try today to break down what it entails, not quite much as an A to Z, but you could also say, yes, an A to Z, but just an idea of how it starts, what you do, why those things are done, and where do they, because, it's nice for people to know as well, where is their basis in Islam? If you do a particular act, where does that come from? That would also be nice. And a lot of people don't realize, as we mentioned in a previous episode, that many of, if not most of them, many of these acts go back to the Prophet Ibrahim, may Allah be pleased with him, and peace and blessings of Allah be upon him. So maybe we could start by, how does the Hajj even start, for example?
Absolutely. So the most complete description of the Hajj that we have is the description of Jabir ibn Abdullah radiyallahu anhuma in Sahih Muslim. And he described the entire Hajj of the Prophet Hajjatul Wada' from the beginning all the way to the end. So where does Hajj start? I guess that we can say that Hajj starts what I'm going to say about Hajj now, I'm going to describe Hajj Tamattu'. And there are three types of Hajj. There is a Tamattu', and there is a Qarin or Qiran, and there is Ifrad. So we have Tamattu' and Qiran, and we have Ifrad. Tamattu' is Hajj and Umrah separate. So you're going to do a full Umrah, stop, a full Hajj, and then finish. Qiran is where you're going to do Umrah and Hajj blended in together. So the Umrah doesn't stop before the Hajj starts. It's sort of Umrah and Hajj blended in together. And Ifrad is, of course, where you make Hajj alone without any Umrah.
So is it fair to say that, for example, the Ifrad would be considered to be the quickest option, or would it be the middle option?
In all honesty, there isn't a massive difference in length of time between the three. There isn't a huge difference in time. And the Prophet ﷺ wished, he said that if Allah Azza wa Jal allowed him to make a Hajj again, that he would make it as tamattu', and he would not have brought the sacrificial animal with him, because he brought his animal with him and he drove it, so he was qarin, he was doing qiran. However, he advised his companions, and he himself hoped that if he was given another chance, he would make tamattu'. So we're going to describe Hajj tamattu', and that is the one that the overwhelming majority of Muslims do. And so not only is it the best of all of them, it's the one the Prophet ﷺ advised his companions to do, and also it's the one that most Muslims do. I would say 99% of Muslims who make Hajj will make Hajj tamattu'. So to keep it simple, and because of the limited time we have, we're going to describe Hajj tamattu'. So overview, what does Hajj tamattu' look like? It looks like an Umrah followed by a break followed by Hajj. Okay? So a person would set out, and I guess Hajj begins by setting out from home with the intention of making Hajj, and they would set out in the months in which it is permissible to set out for the Hajj. And for most people these days, in the days of aeroplanes and what have you, the setting out for the Hajj would take place usually a few weeks before the Hajj begins.
And when they set out, for example, on the aeroplane for that journey, do they need to verbally say the intention, or is it sufficient to just be in the heart?
So we haven't got to the intention yet. This is just purely a person leaving their home during the months in which they are allowed to leave. So it could be, for example, in Dhul Qa'dah, in Dhul Hijjah, in these months that we're coming into, they go out and they're intending to reach Mecca to make the Hajj. Now, bearing in mind, the first thing they're going to do is an Umrah. Okay, and we need to begin by talking about the miqat. So the miqat is a particular set or mawaqit, are a particular set of places that are dotted around Makkah, some near and some far. And if you drew a line between them to make like a polygon, that would represent a boundary. Before you cross that boundary, you need to be in your ihram, and you need to make your intention, and the sunnah is to make it verbally.
So I guess you could say it's like a starting point.
It is a starting point, yes.
It's like the entry.
And just to talk about some common mawaqit, the common miqat that people have, if you're coming from Medina, then Medina itself has a place called Dhul Hulayfa, which is now known as Abyar Ali. And that place there, the miqat masjid, that's the miqat. So if that's your last place that you're going to cross, and you're not going to cross another miqat, you need to be in your ihram coming from there. If you're coming from the west, your miqat will be Al-Juhfa, which is between Medina and Jeddah. And when you sort of land towards Jeddah, you will cross the line which is between Al-Juhfa, and you would basically be entering from there, probably on the plane.
So you'd be getting into ihram on the plane.
Exactly. If you're going from Jeddah to Makkah directly, then you would need to be in ihram before the plane lands. And they would announce that on the plane. Ihram, very briefly, is a state that people are in. It's not necessarily related to clothing, although clothing is a part of it. But it's not like when I'm wearing a white sheet, I'm in ihram, and when I'm not, I'm not. Ihram is a state. So ihram will begin when you say your intention. Now, for ease of use, what I recommend people on the plane to do is to wear their ihram before they get on the plane, and maybe just put something like this kandur or this thobe over the top. As for a lady, she makes ihram in her normal clothes. So she does not need to wear white or any special clothing or change her clothing or not allowed to not change her clothing or anything like that. The lady has nothing to do with, clothing specifically, except that she doesn't cover her face or her hands. If she would normally cover her face and her hands, then she can cover her face with her hijab, and she can cover her hands with her jilbab, inshallah. So the man would generally wear the bottom part because it's not comfortable to get changed on the plane. Wear the bottom part before he gets on the plane, and maybe just on the plane just take this sort of loose t-shirt or garment or thobe off and just put the upper part around, so that the man would not be wearing anything other than 2 sheets. He would not be wearing any undergarments, not any vest, but he would be wearing just his 2 sheets wrapped around him, making sure that they are, comfortable and well wrapped to cover his aura, especially the bottom parts. Not when you're not used to it, you have to make sure it's covered properly. There's nothing wrong with wearing a belt, wearing a watch, wearing sunglasses, anything like that. But with regard to perfume, obviously perfume is a no-no in ihram. And so any perfume that the man would wear would be put on his skin before he says his intention and not afterwards. And of course, no cutting of the hair, so no putting your fingers through the beard or rubbing your hair so the hair comes out and things like that.
What happens, what happens, say for example, somebody was on the plane, it's the first time they're doing Umrah, for example, or Hajj, and they didn't put the ihram until they already landed in Jeddah. What would they have to do? Do they have to do anything? Do they have to start again?
So I'm going to give you a beautiful principle. This principle was drilled into us by our teachers when we were taught the Hajj and the Umrah, and it will benefit you immensely. This principle is al-jahilu wan-nasi la shay'a alayh. There is no penalty for the one who is ignorant or the one who forgets. And this actually happens to many people, that the plane don't announce it, the captain forgot to tell you to put your ihram on or whatever, and they land and they're like, what shall I do? Just put your ihram as soon as you remember it and make your niyyah, and there is no penalty. Because you, the ignorant one or the one who forgets, has no penalty in the Hajj. It happens loads. I went to the hotel, perfume. Of course, the hotel should be perfume free, but it's not. You go to the hotel, perfume is everywhere. Someone puts perfume on your hand or perfumed soap or perfumed body wash or whatever. And subhanAllah, you think, oh, my Hajj is ruined. No. Al-jahil wa nasi la shay'a alayh. There is no penalty for the one who is ignorant or the one who forgets. You just need to wash it off and continue, inshallah, without any penalty. We said no cutting of the hair, the nails, of course, no getting married and no organizing a marriage or planning a marriage or anything like that. And we speak generally about the mahdhurat al-ihram. You don't wear, men don't wear any sewn clothing. And in terms of sandals, men should be wearing sandals, some kind of sandals. I don't like Crocs, to be honest with you, because they kind of look like a shoe that covers the whole foot. It should be some sort of sandal.
I'll just hold you on the sandal point there, inshallah.
Okay.
And we're going again for a break, or should I say for our first break. Join us, inshallah, after this short break. Assalamu alaikum and welcome back. Now, just before we went to the break, we were mentioning some of the mahdhurat, or the things that should be avoided, or as we would say, the no-nos when you're in ihram. And you just got to the point of the sandals and how you personally don't like the Crocs because they resemble shoes, really.
Sometimes sandals can be, it really should be a sandal. I mean, sometimes people will bring sandals that are like, they're
They look like shoes.
They're completely shoes. They just are called sandals, But ideally, it should be a sandal. And I'm not going to go into more detail, because if we start going into more detail, should it have a back strap? How much of the foot should be bare? It's all getting overly complicated for people. It should be a sandal. It should be something that you call a na'al. And it doesn't matter if it has stitching in it, but it should be a sandal and not,
I guess you could say that
a shoe.
The kind of thing that the average person, no matter where they're from, will say that's a sandal.
That's a sandal.
Whereas you said, if people look at a Croc, it looks more like a water sports shoe or something, doesn't it?
Yeah, and just out of safety, it should be a sandal. Before you're in your clothing, you're not in ihram until you say your intention, even if you're wearing the clothing. So just as an example, I could be wearing my white sheets and still put perfume on my hand because I haven't actually got to the point where I'm saying my intention yet. So the captain says there's 5 minutes before we reach the miqat. That's a time to say your intention. You don't want to pass it. You don't want to wait till he's like, okay, 30 seconds, 20 seconds, 10 seconds. No, you should have said it before you passed. So when the captain says there's 5 minutes away from the miqat, then you just simply say your intention then. If you're coming from Medina, then you have the advantage that you'll be on the ground. So you can actually stop at the miqat and you can take a shower and make wudu if you want to. It's not a condition, but you can do. And some people pray 2 rak'at. I personally don't see that there's a clear evidence for praying 2 rak'at when entering ihram. I think the Prophet ﷺ prayed 2 rak'at because he came to the masjid and he prayed Fajr in the masjid. But I don't see necessarily that there's a specific evidence for doing that. But if you wish to pray 2 rak'at, there is inshallah, no harm in it. And once you've said that intention, which is, bear in mind with tamattu', so your intention is umrah, not hajj. You will say, labbaik Allahumma umrah. Oh Allah, I'm making my intention for umrah. And then you'll start the talbiyah, the recital, that those words you say, labbaik Allahumma labbaik, labbaik la sharika laka labbaik, inna alhamda wa ni'mata laka wal mulk, la sharika lak. And you continue doing this. A man should do it as loudly as possible. A lady should do it so only the person sitting next to her can hear her. And on you would go through your journey, complete your procedures in the airport and so on, until you reach Makkah. And remember, you're reaching Makkah now with the intention of Umrah.
So should the person say labbaik Allahumma labbaik, etc., non-stop?
As much as possible. And there's no harm if you go to sleep, if you forget, if you get tired, if your throat's feeling sore, if you just don't feel like saying it's okay, inshallah. But as much as possible, particularly when changing direction, when getting out of a vehicle, getting back in. But as much as possible, as continuously as you can, without making hardship for anyone. On you go until you reach the Kaaba. Now, you may have seen some men uncovering their right shoulder during Umrah. We don't do this until we start the Umrah. So, some men uncover their right shoulder from the airport in London, Heathrow Airport. That's not really correct. Your shoulders especially need to be covered for the prayer, both shoulders. So, generally, you would uncover your shoulders as you reach the Kaaba. So when you reach the Kaaba, there's no such thing as a dua when you reach the Kaaba, or the first time some people stand and make a dua and they say the first time you see the Kaaba, your dua will be accepted. There's no real such thing as that. There's no evidence for that. You would begin, and when you enter the Kaaba, you enter the masjid and you see the Kaaba, you'll notice that you almost certainly won't enter at the black stone. The black stone is marked by bright green lights on the opposite wall. You may be able to see it, and it's also marked by everyone doing sort of strange things and waving and standing still. But the point is that you almost certainly won't enter the Kaaba at the black stone. So what you would do, because you don't enter the Kaaba at the black stone, you would need to just walk with the people. Don't walk against them. It's very dangerous. Walk with the people until you reach the black stone. So you probably have to do half a round, 2/3 or 1/3 of a round before you actually start. At this point, the man would uncover his right shoulder by just sort of putting the towel underneath the armpit and throwing it over his shoulder so that his right shoulder would be uncovered. You can use a pin if you want, but I personally don't think there's a need really. It's maybe for small children, it's helpful to use a pin, but I don't think for a grown man there's a real need to use it. But if it's uncomfortable, you can use a pin, inshallah. And the person would start, Bismillah, Allahu Akbar. And they've started now their first time around the Kaaba. There is no specific dua to make each time you go around, except in the last leg. So if you imagine the Kaaba as being four sort of sides. One side will take you past Maqam Ibrahim. One side will take you past the Hijr, the chest height wall. The third side will take you towards the yamani corner. And then the yamani corner, which is the uncovered corner, you can see the bricks through it, to the black stone is the last part. In that last part, the sunnah is to recite Rabbana atina fi dunya hasana wa fil akhirati hasana wa qina adhab an-nar. Before that, you must be in wudu to make tawaf. And you must remain in wudu for all of the tawaf, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. Except the person who has some problems like keeping their wudu, this person is sufficient for them to make it at the beginning and to keep going, inshallah. But the one who is in a normal situation, they should, and if they break their wudu, ideally they should resume the tawaf again if they can. If they can't start again because it's too busy, it's too big, then they can at least begin the circle again. So if they were in the middle of number 3, they can at least start number 3 again. But ideally, if it's quiet, they should be really making the 7 again, inshallah. There's no specific dua. You can make any dua you want, in any language you want. It's okay to talk to the person next to you, but you should try and mostly focus on your worship. around you go. Every time you go around and past the black stone, while you're walking, raise your right hand and say Allahu Akbar. You don't need to jump up and down, wave your hands, or stand there for a long time. Just Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, as you go around. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And at the end of the 7th, you would also wave, which would make 8 times that you had waved, one at the beginning, and then the others, which would make 8 times in total. And then you have finished your tawaf.
Should you in the tawaf, if you can, touch the black stone? If it's possible.
I generally don't cover this in Hajj because realistically at Hajj time, it's not possible to do without hurting someone. And a couple of times during the times I've been to Hajj, I've tried it. And even I've been with brothers who will say like, no, who are really good at it. They know how to get in. But I've never ever done it except that I regretted it. Well, I regretted it and I felt that it really harmed my Hajj because there's no way to get near to the stone without pushing or without hurting somebody else or without, causing some hardship to the people making tawaf.
And unfortunately, sometimes you've even seen some poor women who have tried to do it and they're squashed with the men and it gets a
If
bit
you want to
hectic.
kiss the black stone, go at a time in Umrah when it's quiet and it's not the Hajj season. Ideally, when the visas close for most countries after Ramadan and before Hajj, most countries the visas are closed. If you manage to get in at that time, inshallah, you'll be able to go and kiss the black stone with minimal harm to other people. But wallah, in the Hajj time, it causes a great deal of hardship for people. And wallah, every time I've done it, I've regretted it. Wallah. So you've done your tawaf and you finish, you're now going to cover, the man is going to cover his shoulder. Now, just a little note, when you're making tawaf, it may get very busy. You may need to move to another floor. You can move without resuming the tawaf. You can just move and continue as long as you didn't go like the wrong way or something like that. And you can go to another floor. If you have your family in front of you and you feel that your family are getting pushed around, the best place is to put them in front of you directly, so that the lady, like for example your wife, her back is towards your chest, so that you can put a little bit, you can shield her from the people who are pushing her from the back. And little kids should always be carried. Never ever let them walk, because especially in Hajj time, it's very, very busy and easy to get them pushed, unless you're on the top floor where you have some room, in which case, I'm sure the kids can run along with you, inshallah.
And something that might come to many people's minds, or we see people doing some strange things as well, does the yamani corner have any specific action or practice that should be done towards it?
You can wipe the corner as you go past with your hand. But people take that wiping to an extreme. Actually, when I used to make Hajj in the early days, when I first went to Medina, it was quite easy to make a mash of the yamani corner every time you walked around. But people seem to have become more attached to it in these days. And last time I went to Hajj, there was a queue at the yamani corner like the black stone of people pushing each other to touch them. Those bricks are bricks. I mean, they're not like those bricks that make up the Kaaba. They're just regular bricks. I mean, they're not like, anything special.
And unfortunately, we see people who will try to wipe their hat or their scarf on the black stone or the yamani corner, and then they'll take this believing that they now have a blessed khudra or a blessed hat, which obviously has no basis in Islam.
No basis in Islam. And the danger is also that those things are probably perfumed. So when you go and wipe yourself on the Kaaba, the kiswa, the curtain that covers the Kaaba, is perfumed. And so you're going to break the rules of your ihram by wiping yourself on it. So generally, you don't want to be doing that. You finished your tawaf, the man has covered his shoulders, and you keep walking past the Maqam Ibrahim. The security guards will take you to an area which is designated for prayer. We advise strongly, don't let anyone pray in the middle of the mataf where the people are making tawaf. You could cause your own death or the death of other people. It's very important that you follow the rules of the security people and the volunteers inside the haram, and you go to the designated prayer areas. The women at the back and the men a little bit further forward, and you pray 2 rak'at. Before you pray them, it's a sunnah to say, وَاتَّخِذُوا مِن مَقَامِ إِبْرَاهِيمَ مُصَلَّى, and it's a sunnah in the first rak'ah to read Al-Kafirun, and in the second to read Qul Huwa Allahu Ahad, after, of course, Surah Al-Fatiha. You finish that, you're then going to go and drink Zamzam water. When you drink Zamzam water, which is usually just behind where you prayed, you're going to drink it to your full, and you're also going to pour it over yourself and make tabarruk, because it is the sunnah to seek barakah from the Zamzam. So the Prophet ﷺ would do it like ghusl. He'd cover himself in the water, and he would seek barakah from it. And we said, don't seek barakah by rubbing your hat on the Kaaba, but you can seek it by covering yourself in Zamzam water, by pouring it on your head, rubbing it on your hands, rubbing it on your face, rubbing it on your chest, and so on. Of course, the ladies must make sure they maintain their proper hijab at all times, inshallah. Now, when you've finished those two things which are sunnah, so if you forget them, it's okay. If you forget to pray behind Maqam Ibrahim, or you forget to drink the Zamzam, there's nothing wrong with that. You're then going to go towards Safa. And Safa is just behind the black stone. But to get to Safa now, as the haram is when we're making this video, you have to walk past Maqam Ibrahim, almost to where the semicircle wall starts, and turn back on yourself. And there's instructions, there's boards and things that take you through a sort of a walkway that goes back on yourself to stop you walking back against the people making tawaf. Takes you out and around to the side. And you're going to come to Safa. When you come to Safa, there's a long dua that you make. In the beginning, you recite the ayah. Just the first time, you recite, Inna Safa wal marwata min sha'airillah. فمن حج البيت واعتمر فلا جناح عليه يطوف بهما ومن تطوع خيرا فإن الله شاكر عليم. أبدأ بما بدأ الله به. I begin with what Allah began with, meaning Allah began with Safa in the ayah, so we begin with Mount Safa. When we get onto Mount Safa, we don't need to climb onto any rocks, we don't need to worry about jamming people, anything like that, but we do need to be somewhere on Mount Safa, facing the Kaaba. We make a particular dua. We make this dua 3 times. And we say, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له له الملك وله الحمد وهو على كل شيء قدير لا إله إلا الله وحده أنجز وعده ونصر عبده وهزم الأحزاب وحده. That's the dua. It's in Fortress of the Muslim and the other books you can read it from. When you make that,
okay,
a small point. When you make that dua, you're then going to follow it with your own dua. So fixed dua, own dua, fixed dua, own dua, fixed dua, and off you go.
Okay, inshallah. So we will just take another break, inshallah. Join us after this break. Assalamu alaikum and welcome back. Just before the break, we mentioned we got to the part where they are on
Safa.
And they've made the dua.
So we're just describing how the dua is. We're saying it's the fixed dua, that's the one you read, followed by your own, followed by the fixed one, followed by your own, followed by the fixed one. So it's like you'd make the fixed one 3 times, and in between you'd sandwich your own dua as much as you want. You're then going to go down towards Marwa. What you'll see as you go towards Marwa is a pair of green lights, about, 50 meters apart from each other. When a man reaches the first of them, he starts running, and he stops running when he reaches the second one. For a lady, she can just walk, inshallah. And this is following, as we said, the story of Hajar when she ran in the base of the valley. So you pass the first light, you start running, you stop at the last one. And if you have family with you, the best option is to just stop for a while and wait. Again, there's no specific dua between Safa and Marwa that you make. There's nothing specific, just whatever you wish. You can recite Quran. You can talk to each other if you wish. Make as much dua as you can. You reach Marwa, you do the same as Safa. Turn face the Kaaba, raise your hands. You say Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, all the way to the end of the dua. La ilaha illallah wahda anjaza wa'da wa nasara abda wa hazama al-ahzaba wahda. And your own dua, then the fixed dua, then your own dua, and you finish with the fixed dua, and off you go again. When you've gone from Safa to Marwa, that's 1. Marwa to Safa is 2. Safa to Marwa is 3. Marwa to Safa is 4. Safa to Marwa is 5. Marwa to Safa is 6. And Safa to Marwa is 7. And you would finish on Marwa with the same dua. So you've made it 8 different times, the beginning and the end. And that you now need to go and you need to cut your hair. If, as a guy, you should shave your hair with a blade. But if you fear that your hair will not grow in time for the Hajj because your Umrah is very near to the Hajj, like just a day before or 2 days before, then it's better just to use a machine and just trim your hair. But if you're able and you think your hair will grow back, it's better to shave it with a blade. There are plenty of barbers and things that do that. For a lady, my sincere advice is bring your own pair of sharp scissors. You don't want a guy cutting your wife's hair for sure. And you really don't want to take the scissors from the barbers because you'd be better off just using a stick. Like they are like as blunt as anything. So you want to ideally bring your own pair of scissors and wait till the hotel room and cut your wife's hair somewhere where nobody else can see. You don't want to go for these people who cut people's hair at Marwa where the guy they just go snip, snip. That's not acceptable. It needs to be cut all over the head And likewise, you don't want the lady to be like letting her hair out the hijab and just cutting the bottom.
So let's say, for example, if a woman has long hair, and the husband's going to cut it, or she's going to cut it herself, how would she do it? Would it be a certain amount?
So it needs to be, if you take your index finger and you've got that little crease at the top of your index finger, just that much.
So the woman, for example, if she has long hair, she could brush her hair behind her back and then just...
Yeah, and just cut
And should it also,
this little bit.
does she then have to go and do it from the fringe as well?
No, it needs to be from all around the hair, but she can just gather her hair at the back. You know, the fringe, she needs to she can just gather even the side parts of the hair. She can just gather at the back and she can just take that tip of the finger off the hair, inshallah. Once you have cut the hair, all of the restrictions of ihram are gone and you are now free to wait for the Hajj. And the Hajj starts on the 8th of the Hijjah. So right at this point, you're out of ihram. From the moment you cut your hair, you're out of ihram. Perfume, marriage, nails, whatever it is. Yani you can do all of the things that you are not allowed to do in the ihram, and you can wear whatever you like. You will wait for the 8th of Dhul Hijjah. On the morning of the 8th of Dhul Hijjah, from your hotel, you want to put your ihram on again. And you want to make your intention, labbaik Allahumma hajjan. Oh Allah, I'm answering your call for Hajj. And again, labbaik Allahumma labbaik, labbaik la sharika laka labbaik. Now, Hajj is a series of days. 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th and 13th. So 6 days. Each day has activities and actions on it. So we're going to go through all of those. Bi-idhnillahi ta'ala, we managed to squeeze them in, inshallah. So on the 8th, your job is to reach Mina. In Mina, you are going to pray Dhuhr, ideally. You would have made your intention before that. From your hotel in Makkah, you don't need to go to the miqat. You would reach Mina before Dhuhr, ideally. And in Mina, every time you're in Mina, you pray each prayer shortened and on time. So no joining. Dhuhr, shortened, 2 rak'ah and on time. Asr, 2 rak'ah, on time. Maghrib, 3 rak'at, on time. Isha, 2 rak'ah, on time. The next day is the 9th, and that's the day of Arafah. Now, the government will assign for you a time to leave Mina, so you don't really have a choice in it. But the sunnah would be to pray Fajr in Mina, which most people would do, and then to leave, bearing in mind you're not praying any sunnah prayers except the 2 rak'ah before Fajr and the Witr. You're going to pray your 2 rak'ah before Fajr, your Fajr prayer, and you're going to head towards Arafat. It doesn't matter when you reach Arafat. Now, the masjid at Arafah is where the khutbah takes place. It may be too busy. Your Hajj group may not allow you to go into the masjid. But in any case, you need to be aware that the masjid is half inside and half outside of Arafat. You will pray Dhuhr and Asr combined because you're out of Mina now. And out of Mina, we combine. So you're going to pray Dhuhr and Asr combined and shortened with 1 adhan and 2 iqamas. The khatib is going to give a khutbah, which you may listen to. If you're in your tent, you may listen to it in your tent as well. You can just pray your Dhuhr and Asr in your tent. Listen to the khatib. And then you need to make sure after the khutbah that you are in Arafat. You must be in Arafat. The Prophet said, Hajju Arafah. Hajj is Arafah. You must not be outside the boundary of Arafat. So you must make sure you're inside of Arafah. From the end of that Asr prayer, which is at the beginning of Dhuhr time, until Maghrib, don't move. Just make dua. You do not need to go to Jabal al-Rahmah. You do not need to stand in the sun. You do not need to make yourself sick by not eating and not drinking and not using the bathroom. You need to just find a place, sitting, standing, lying down to make dua. If you wish to move from place to place, you may do so. But ideally, don't waste your time on a mission to go to Jabal al-Rahmah. You're going to get hot, you're going to get sick, and also it's not going to earn you any good deeds to do that. So you want to ideally stay in the place you've been allocated, making dua. This is the time when Allah Azza wa Jal frees the most people from the hellfire. It is the best of all of the times and the most important. So it's really important you spend that time effectively. When Maghrib adhan comes, what you're going to do is you're not going to pray Maghrib in Arafat. You're going to go to Muzdalifah. When again the government will assign you a time to go to Muzdalifah, even if they assign you after Asr, you will not leave Arafat boundary until Maghrib. By the law, nobody leaves Arafat boundary until Maghrib. There is no train, there is no bus that leaves Arafat boundary until Maghrib, unless it's a health emergency. Nobody leaves. So inshallah ta'ala, you will go from Maghrib, you'll not pray Maghrib, and you'll go to Muzdalifah. When you reach Muzdalifah, Muzdalifah is one of the hardest places because there's no accommodation, there's just concrete. So you're going to just find a place to sit. You're going to pray Maghrib and Isha at Isha time, combined and shortened, Maghrib 3, Isha 2, in Muzdalifah at Isha time. If the time for Isha is about to go and you haven't yet reached Muzdalifah, you need to pray Maghrib and Isha wherever you are, including on the road. But presuming you reach Muzdalifah, you're going to reach. And there's nothing to do until Fajr. You're going to sit. If you have with you elderly, women, children, or sick people, you may leave after half of the night, which is half of the time between Maghrib and Fajr. You may leave towards Mina again for stoning. In any case, whether you leave after half the night or whether you leave after Fajr, the same situation is there. Most people will pray Fajr in Muzdalifah, and then from Fajr until sunrise will make dua in Muzdalifah. At the Mash'ar al-Haram, they will make dua until sunrise. Now we're on the same story, whether you left after midnight or whether you left after sunrise, you're going to stone. This is Eid day now, the 10th day. And you're only going to stone one, which is Jamaratul Aqaba, the big one, which means you're going to miss the first pillar, miss the second pillar, and stone the third pillar. You're going to take 7 stones. You do not need to take them from Muzdalifah. You do not need to wash them in Zamzam. You can take them from Mina, from Arafat, from Muzdalifah, from wherever you want. They should be the size of a dry chickpea. Please, everyone, look at what a dry chickpea is.
Yeah,
It's
I
not,
think
this is not a dry chickpea.
People take the biggest rock as if it is actually the shaitan there,
It's
and they're going to
symbolic.
knock him out.
It's symbolic. Chickpea size, dry chickpea size. Google it, look up a dry chickpea, go buy a dry chickpea and use it as your reference point. It should be real stone, not tarmac or soil or something like that.
I guess another way of looking at it is the size of a small marble. There's some people play with marbles, a very small marble.
Or even smaller than that, even a little smaller than that also. Like not
Yeah,
certainly
slightly smaller,
not bigger than that anyway.
Yeah.
And you're going to take these, you got 7, you're going to say Bismillah, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. 7 times, you've stoned, and then you're gonna go. There's no dua on that day. You're gonna go, inshallah. The things you need to do on Eid day, ideally, you need to stone the big Jamara, okay? Now by this time the Jamarat are in Mina, so you're back in Mina at your tents. You stone the big Jamara. You need to sacrifice your animal. You need to cut your hair, and you need to make tawaf. Okay? Leave the sacrifice aside. We have 3 things: stoning, we have cutting the hair, we have tawaf. Any 2 of the 3, and you can come out of ihram. Any 2 of the 3, you can come out of ihram. You don't need to wait for the sacrifice. So for example, I've stoned and cut my hair, I'll come out of ihram. If I make tawaf on that day, it's fine. If I delay the tawaf until the night time, it's okay as well, because it will be very, very busy. Now let's presume I've done those things on Eid day. My animal has been sacrificed, I have cut my hair, I have stoned, and I have made my tawaf. I've made my tawaf and sa'i. So this is the Hajj tawaf. So it's the same as Umrah, as we described, but without uncovering the shoulder. The 7 times tawaf, the Safa and Marwa, the same du'as as we described earlier on in the program. Then I've completed the actions on the day of Eid. I need to spend half of the night in Mina. That's half of the time between Maghrib and Fajr must be spent in Mina. If your tents are outside of Mina in Muzdalifah or in Aziziyah or somewhere like that, you need to come into Mina and spend half of the night. The remaining days are Ayyam al-Tashriq. And on those days, you're in Mina, you're staying in Mina, and you are going to pray Dhuhr on time, Asr on time, Maghrib on time, Isha on time, but shortened. And the main thing you need to do is after Zawal time, after Dhuhr time, you need to stone all 3 Jamarat with 7 stones each, starting at the small, then the medium, then the big. And between each one, make dua. So small 7 stones, dua, away from the Jamarat, go away, make dua, come back again to the middle Jamarat, 7 stones, make dua. After stoning the big one, you leave back towards your tent, and you do that 1 time in each of the 11th and the 12th. Last thing is, if you wish to stay for the 13th, it's optional. فَمَنْ تَعَجَّلَ فِي يَوْمَيْنِ فَلَا إِثْمَ عَلَيْهِ وَمَنْ تَأَخَّرَ فَلَا إِثْمَ عَلَيْهِ لِمَنِ اتَّقَى. There is no harm in leaving after 2 days of stoning or 3 days of stoning. So if 2 days of stoning, you must leave Mina by Maghrib. By the time of the Maghrib Adhan, you must be outside of Mina. If you are inside of Mina at the Maghrib Adhan and you're not trying to leave, like you're not stuck in traffic or something, then you need to stay for an extra, which is the 13th day. Again, you wait for Zawal time, which is after Dhuhr, and I prefer stoning after Asr. On each of the days of Tashriq, I stone after Asr to avoid the crowds. And you're gonna do the same thing, the 3 with the dua sandwiched in between each one. And that completes the rites of the Hajj. One little point we didn't make is when you switch from Labbaik Allahumma Labbaik to the Eid takbirat, is once you come to stone the Jamara on the day of Eid. You're going to change from Labbaik Allahumma Labbaik on that day of Eid when you came from Muzdalifah. You're going to change to the takbirat of Eid. After that, really to say is that we really have given a very summarized thing, and we have missed out certain elements, not a lot inshallah. So it is important that everyone goes through a reliable book or watches a more detailed program, because to cram it into one series was tough, inshallah.
And thank you, viewers, for joining in for that summarized version. And as Brother Muhammad Timhal said, go back and read as well to educate yourself more before taking the Hajj, inshallah. And until next time, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.